Cockroaches crawl out of the cracks and disappear for good. No exterminator required. Everything you need is already in your kitchen. No miracle chemicals from the ads. Just a simple four-ingredient mixture that makes them destroy their own colony. The global pest control industry is worth over $22 billion a year. This solution will cost you less than $2. And right now, I'm going to show you exactly how it works, step by step. A few nuances matter here. A cockroach is an insect with an exoskeleton. Its skin is a hard, chitinous shell coated with a thin layer of waxy lipids. That layer is the only thing protecting it from desiccation. Without it, the insect dies of dehydration within a few hours. Boric acid is not a poison in the conventional sense. It is a weak boron-based acid that occurs naturally near volcanic springs and salt flats. It feels like talc to the touch and looks like powdered sugar. And it is precisely that resemblance to something harmless that makes it so effective.
The fine particles of boric acid cling to the cockroach's body mechanically, like dust to tape, and break down that protective lipid layer. Nothing complicated. Simple abrasion and chemical disintegration of the lipids. The cockroach also ingests particles while grooming its antennae and legs, at which point the boric acid enters the body and disrupts the nervous system and metabolism. Here is a detail most people don't know. Cockroaches as a genus have existed on Earth for over 300 million years. They survived the mass extinction that took the dinosaurs. They have witnessed 5 global catastrophes, and they are killed by a mineral from the pharmacy that costs 30 hryvnias. But there is another effect that rarely gets mentioned, and it is precisely this that makes boric acid unique among all household remedies. Death does not come immediately. It takes 24 to 72 hours. In that time, the contaminated cockroach returns to the colony, grooms itself, shares food through trophallaxis, a real term for the process of food exchange between insects, and infects others. The poison spreads like a chain reaction. It's the Trojan horse effect. The insect delivers its own destruction directly into the nest. Studies show that when applied correctly, the effect reaches over 90% of the population within a single nest. Cockroaches develop resistance to most modern insecticides within 3 to 5 generations. A documented fact, and one of the reasons the industry regularly releases new generation products. Boric acid works mechanically, destroying the physical structure of the body rather than acting through neuroreceptors, which is why, across more than 70 years of observation, no resistance to it has ever been recorded. No cockroach will ever evolve out of having an exoskeleton. And all of this happens simply because the insect wants to groom itself. Ancient Egyptians used natron, a salt mixture containing borates, for mummifying bodies. One side effect they observed empirically. Storage rooms had almost no insects. They didn't know why. They simply noted the result and repeated it. Knowledge of the protective properties of borates existed for millennia, just in a different context, under a different name.
In America, boric acid appeared in household reference books at the start of the 20th century with no fanfare, simply as roach powder. In the 1920s, it was sold in pharmacies and hardware stores under the plain name roach powder. No science in the instructions, just sprinkle in the cracks. It works. In the late 1940s, the University of California conducted the first systematic field trials of boric acid against Blatella germanica in residential buildings. The results were convincing enough that in the 1950s, the United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, included it in federal recommendations as a standard household cockroach control method. Cheap and effective. Toxicity to humans several times lower than most chemical alternatives. Then came the patents. Synthetic pyrethroids, neonicotinoids, chlorpyrifos. All of it patentable, bottlable, and sellable at significant margin. Boric acid is a naturally occurring substance. You can't patent it. It costs the same for everyone. And gradually, it stopped interesting the industry. Not because it was banned, but because no business model could be built around it. The federal recommendations quietly became obsolete. Roach powder disappeared from shelves. It survived mainly in little jars on grandmother's windowsills. The cockroach control market in the United States is worth approximately $1.5 billion annually. A professional exterminator visit to an American apartment runs from $150 to $300 per session, and usually several visits are needed. A commercial gel bait at the supermarket, $8 to $15 per tube, lasting 1 to 2 months. It's the classic razor and blades model. The first product hooks you, the next ones keep you there. Each new generation of cockroach requires a new product, because resistance to synthetic chemicals develops quickly, and the industry knows this. That's not a flaw in the model. It's the point.
There is a detail that I personally find striking. Boric acid is the standard choice in closed research facilities and laboratories where chemical volatility is critical. It doesn't evaporate in an enclosed space and doesn't contaminate the air. The simplest pharmacy powder turned out to be reliable enough for environments where the purity of the surroundings matters above all else. But during the commercial break, between news segments, you'll hear about the new 5th-generation gel. A 50-gram pack of boric acid costs $2 to $3 at any American pharmacy or on Amazon. That's enough for several months of kitchen treatment. Peanut butter, honey, flour, present in almost every home. Total cost of one complete treatment cycle, under $3, against a potential $400 to $600 for the professional approach over a year. I'm not claiming anyone is deliberately concealing this information, but there is a pattern that's hard to ignore. Simple, inexpensive solutions disappear from public awareness through the absence of any economic incentive to promote them. This wasn't banned. It was erased by the market's indifference to anything that doesn't generate repeat revenue. The University of Florida published comparative studies on methods of controlling Blatella germanica, the most common species of kitchen cockroach. Boric acid-based baits showed over 90% effectiveness with repeated application over 3 weeks. Other studies, including from the U.S. National Institutes of Health, confirm low toxicity to mammals at correct dosages. The LD50 for rats is approximately 2.66 grams per kilogram, comparable to ordinary table salt.
But I want to be honest here, because this method has real limitations. First, boric acid does not work instantly and will not eliminate everything overnight. Full effect takes anywhere from a few days to 3 weeks, depending on colony size. Second, it is largely ineffective against the American cockroach, Paraplaneta americana, the large reddish-brown species that lives in basements and sewers. It is more cautious, makes less contact with baits, and a serious infestation requires a more comprehensive solution. Third, if there are children or pets that reach into every corner, bait placement requires care. A small amount in a bait is not lethal to a human, but it still should not be ingested. Fourth, in a heavily infested home with faulty plumbing, this method addresses the symptom rather than the cause. But for a typical urban kitchen with ordinary small cockroaches, this is a solution backed by science and proven over decades. You will need 4 ingredients: boric acid, peanut butter, 1 tablespoon, any kind, even the cheapest; liquid honey, half a tablespoon; flour or breadcrumbs, 1 tablespoon, for texture and as an additional attractant. Why these components specifically? Peanut butter is a fat with a sharp, persistent smell. Cockroaches respond to fat traces as a food signal. They literally follow the chemical trail to the source. Honey adds sugar, the second key attractant. Together they mimic exactly what a cockroach is looking for on every kitchen at night. Flour or breadcrumbs are filler. They give the mixture the right consistency and make the bait resemble real food in texture. And the boric acid, hidden inside this mixture, has no smell and does not repel the insect. It simply sits there and waits. Now the proportions, and here is an important nuance that most recipes online ignore. The concentration of boric acid must be low. Exactly half a tablespoon for this whole quantity of mixture, approximately 5 to 10% of total mass. Use more, and cockroaches will sense something is wrong and avoid the bait. Insects don't understand chemistry, but they have finely calibrated avoidance reflexes. Too high a concentration kills too quickly, and the cockroach dies before returning to the colony. The slow action is a design feature, not a flaw.
Mix the peanut butter, honey, and flour into a uniform mass. It should resemble thick dough. Then add the boric acid and mix again. This takes 2 minutes. Next, form balls the size of a pea. No larger. A cockroach won't bite off a big piece. A small ball suits its feeding behavior precisely. If you have an empty, needleless syringe, fill it with the paste. It makes it easy to squeeze thin strips into the gaps between furniture where a ball won't reach. Where to place them is a science of its own. Cockroaches move along walls and in dark, narrow spaces. Their routes are predictable. Behind and under the refrigerator, under the sink, in the gap between the kitchen cabinet and the wall, behind the stove, under the dishwasher, in the gaps beneath the lower kitchen drawers. If there's a hanging cabinet above the stove, place bait inside, in the corners. Don't put it on open surfaces. The bait needs to be where the cockroach feels safe, in darkness and tight spaces, not in the middle of the table. Timelines. Tonight, you'll spend 15 minutes preparing and placing the bait. The first dead cockroaches will appear within 24 to 48 hours. Active colony die-off occurs on days 3 to 5. After 3 weeks, with bait renewed once a week, the population falls by 90 to 95%. If isolated individuals remain after a month, that's either new migration from neighbors or a small nest in a spot you missed. Repeat the cycle. 1 pharmacy tube of boric acid will outlast 10 such cycles. There are recipe variations for those with peanut allergies or who simply don't have it at home. Any other fat with a strong smell works instead. Congealed meat stock, or even a small amount of fish oil. The key is a fat base with a pronounced scent. Honey can be replaced with sugar syrup in the same proportion. The recipe is flexible. The boric acid is not. This operation costs under $3 and takes 15 minutes, while calling an exterminator for the same result runs $150 to $300, leaves chemical smell in the apartment for a week, and requires you to take the children and the cat somewhere else for the day. A creature that survived 5 mass extinctions seems invulnerable, but it is not invulnerable to the chemistry of patents and advertising budgets. It is vulnerable to a white powder that costs $2 and has existed in nature for billions of years.